You can skip this one. Occasionally I do these. This is why my account will never be big, because I stay off topic. But so you can skip these. I'm going to talk politics for a second here a little bit, but also just about being human. Just feel free to skip it. But there's a compliment in this for you, and I'll start with the compliment. It was really great yesterday. I asked on both TikTok and YouTube about the Microsoft thing and Call of Duty, and kind of, is it the dog that caught the car, and now what do they do? And I really appreciate your feedback. I really appreciate when people take the time to write lengthy things. YouTube, you can write lengthy things. TikTok, it's a little harder. Sometimes on TikTok, people will do video responses, and I really appreciate that. I do. I'm not kidding. I'm not that bright. I get smarter every single time somebody shares something with me when we're talking on the subject, because I understand that I misexpressed something. Misexpressed something? I didn't express something clearly. There you go. Or you've got a point I didn't think about, or there's some clarity, or there's insight from a different perspective. We're all humans. Like when anyone calls anybody else an NPC, I always get so ticked off, because we are all have motivations, and we're all like the masters of our universe of trying to figure things out and thinking we're trying to do stuff. And we try to operate in that world, some more thoughtfully than others. But I really appreciate those replies, that you took the time to out of your day to respond to me in a way to try to help me understand something. I appreciate. I'm not kidding. That's not like, I don't do those things for clicks or whatever. I don't know. I do it because I'm trying to understand this stuff, and we're trying to have a conversation. That's why I kind of like this format a little bit sometimes. I don't even know, this is me talking one way. The responses are high engagement, so instead of my account. I don't know. All right. But I appreciate that, so thank you. But with that, you are people. You are a person in history. And I think we forget that sometimes. And I think we like to think of ourselves, if we would go back in time, that we would be the good person. Now, sometimes it is where we are in life, we don't have the language to express what's going on, right? I'll say that often, right? Think about it. If you're like a kid and you really like somebody, you don't know what to say, so you punch them in the arm, right? That's kind of a classic cliche, because you don't have the language to say, hey, I care about you, I want to know more about you, or whatever, right? And as you get older, you build up this language to be able to talk about the things that interest you, right? And sometimes I think it's less that my opinions or views have changed on things. It's just I've gotten better at expressing those, or having the language around them to discuss them. And so it's important. And it's why I encourage people to reply, to make videos, to make your own content, to make your own games. Like, I want to see that output, because I think that's really interesting, because that's how we find out what's in your head. Because again, you're all real people. You really all exist in the world, and you really all exist in history. It's really easy to look back at a movie, particularly, and go like, oh man, I would have, or think that people were so great, or they made some kind of sacrifice or did something during that time, right? But not think that same applies to us, only retroactively. And so I bring this up because something happened recently. So yesterday I got depressed because I saw somebody that I used to respect was over on Twitter, and they were not only were they just participating there and normalizing a lot of that, they had actually secretly subscribed to Twitter Premium, and were running they had their own subscription service. And you can only do that if you're Twitter Blue. But they hid their blue check mark because they had enough shame to understand that they didn't want to be supporting Musk, but yet they still wanted the benefit of it, which is, to me, 100 times worse. Like, just have the blue check mark then and admit that what you're doing. But to have the moral ethics to know that they're to be shamed, but yet still do it, is just 100 times worse to me. So you can say, hey, that's this Chet going off on his anti-Musk stuff, blah, 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 because what does it matter? What does it matter? Okay, we actually have an example. So, and it's also fair to say, hey, you don't care. Like, I get sometimes there's something to be outraged about every single day in this world, and it's exhausting, and we all can't be outraged about everything, right? 100%. You pick your battles. I can get ranty on things. I get that. And I try not to do that on this channel. Instead, to just be positive and talk about games and all of that, because that's what I really like. That's the core of what I am. I'm laughing way more than I'm angry, right? But there is a problem happening, right? And so And also, again, I get you don't care about this or what, but when you have enough shame to hide it, then you're winking. But so Musk was pushing the replacement theory, right? And the replacement theory is this conspiracy that the Jewish people are bringing people of color into the U.S. and Western countries to replace poor whites so that they can control them. It is absolute garbage, right-wing, crazy white nationalist stuff, right? It makes no sense, right? And Musk's been pushing all the illegals crossing the border are coming in to vote, and they just can't. Like none of what he's saying is true. It is absolutely misinformation. It is absolutely lies. But so who cares what Musk says, right? It doesn't matter. We should just ignore it, right? It's just Chet, why do you care? Well, because people have this thing of like, if it doesn't affect them, I'm not a person of color and I'm not Jewish, it's not real. It's not really happening. It has no effect in the world. Why do you care? You're upset over something that'll never happen or never have any effect on the world. Well, except it does, right? I mean, think about pictures of famous times in history. Like, hey, if you were on the bus with Rosa Parks, you're telling yourself, man, no way. I am supporting her. I'm going to do the right thing. Are you? Or are you going to tell her, hey, get to the back of the bus. I got to get to work. Because that's what you're doing, right? You are in history. You are not in such a photographic capture point, but you're in history. You are part of this, and you're making choices that have the same kind of impact. And the normalization that's happening around the replacement theory that Musk hits every single day has an effect. How does it have an effect? Well, the U.S. Congress is about to pass immigration reform. Now, I didn't like a lot of it, but it was also tied to some supporting of our friends around the world. That didn't pass. Why didn't it pass? Because Trump pushed on replacement theory and said that they should sink that because it doesn't do enough to counter that, and some made up weird, crazy, again, bunch of misinformation and lies. But he could push that because it was no longer this crazy out there theory. It was no longer crazy talk because Musk had talked about it so much on such a large platform that they're all on that it become normalized to the language of it. So remember how I said earlier, you learn this language to talk about things, but you also sometimes learn the wrong language, right? And then this is the case. People, it's called the Overton window where you normalize what you accept as regular language. And people have now accepted this. There's another phrase, boiling the frog. The idea that you cook a frog not by throwing it in boiling water and killing it instantly, but by slowly raising the temperature of the water, and it doesn't even know it's being killed. That's what's happening here. And that's what's happening on Twitter. And it's an abstract thing that I have been railing against for a very long time, except this past week, it stopped being abstract. It became fundamental and real. It had impact. It changed the course of history for the worst and had a negative effect around the world. And I don't know what else to tell people who will support this normalization of hate, this normalization of lies, this expanding of the language and giving people those words to be able to use to have a negative impact on this world. I don't know what more I can tell you except to say you are in those pictures of history. You're in every photograph that you said you would stand on the right side of, and you're not. And now I'm being all high and mighty here for sure. And yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that I don't know. Like I try to learn every day. People call me out on stuff. People like, I try, right? And this can maybe just people are trying and this is not where they fall. But when you have enough shame to hide what you're doing and then still do it because you're more important than that, yeah, I got a problem. And again, I'm being high and mighty. You can dislike this video. You can give my game a negative review. I've gotten that because of talking like this. I don't care. But just remember, your voice is real. Use your voice. I want to hear your voice. Reply in comments, make videos, make games. Let's go back to having fun. But that your voice does have an impact, and there's no such thing as NPCs. You all matter. Every single person who responds, every single person who says, I'm a fat idiot with a red face, right? They're all real, and they say that for their reasons. So remember, what you do matters. And that's it.